Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brian Trippett. I am known in social media circles as the Front Porch Conservative. Welcome to a session of Chattin on the Porch, a nice little live stream where we get together with some very interesting people and talk about stuff that is on our minds. And we are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, we are on Twitter. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a tweet, send out a Gettr, send out a Truth Social, send out a Gab, send out wherever you may be and tell people, get in here, because I've got probably one of the coolest guests that has ever graced the electronic front porch. Don't get me wrong, I love every last one of them who come here, but this one's kind of special. So again, if you haven't done it yet, send out your tweets, your Gettrs, your Gabs, your Truth Socials. Tell everybody to come on in, pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of something, be it a coffee or a adult beverage, and settle in because we're going to have a really good time. The guest of honor is running just a few minutes late, but that is okay because she is dealing with issues related to the bean, and you'll understand what that means as we get into the course of the conversation upon her arrival. So I'm going to start dropping the music, and I'm going to filibuster for a little bit while we're waiting for the guest of honor to arrive, and then we'll do a formal introduction and bring her in. On March 3rd of 2024, my channel celebrated its one-year anniversary, and I had already decided well in advance that I wanted to bring on somebody who was, in their own way, responsible for inspiring me to do what I'm doing now. And it's always, as with all things, it is, you never quite know how these things are going to turn out. And in the year that I've been doing this, it has been a joy, a blessing, an aggravation, a stress, a lack of sleep. It's been any number of things, but it's always good. And like I say, the person that I'm going to have on here in a little bit is one of those souls who directly inspired me to be doing what I'm doing. And, you know, God bless them for it, along with a couple other people. And someday maybe I'll have them on my channel because I'd love to sit down and just have a conversation with them. But it looks like we've got a very lively little audience right now. As I say, we're just waiting for the guest of honor to arrive, and then I'll do an introduction. Why didn't I tell? Yes, darling, we are live. We are most certainly live. It's all good. Do not worry about it. And glad to see this lady who's the secret weapon to making me look as good as I do, or at least one of them anyway, along with some people that give me like anti-aging cream, but that's a whole other there. Hello, Jessica. Yeah, we're good to see everybody. Hello, Robert. Hello, good night. Glad to see everybody here. Thanks for sticking with, and by the way, since we're on the subject of like the 1-year anniversary, thank you so much to you, my audience, for helping grow my channel in the way that it has. It's just, I've been at this officially a year, or over a year now, and I've talked to a lot of people and who are very cool in one form or another from different backgrounds and interests, and it's always a load of fun. Like I say, it's stress and it's lack of sleep and it's any number of different things, but you know what? For where it's going, I wouldn't trade it for the world. And you guys are really the biggest part of it, because if you guys weren't watching the videos or showing up for the live streams or sending out the messages on social media that you do, this wouldn't even be possible. So, as much as this 1-year anniversary is a celebration of, the small little contributions I've made to social media, it's as much about you guys. So Fedora Nation, love every loving one of you. And for all you guys out there, no, that was not gay. That was just chef's kiss. So there you go. Anyway, we're waiting for the guest of honor to arrive. So if you haven't done it yet, send out a Gettr, send out a Gab, send out a tweet, send out a Truth Social, whatever you got on social media. Tell all your friends to get in here. The guest of honor, and over on Rumble, we've got Mr. Peter Feliciano, who we see you, my good sir, and we are glad for your Puerto Rican representation. So it's all good. Peter, I'm doing great. I hope you're doing very well where you are, sir. As I say, we're just waiting for the guest of honor to arrive. She was taking care of some issues related to the bean, And she sent me a message, say, "Hey, I may be running just a few minutes late." And I said, "No problem. It's all good. Do what you got to do." As you all are fully aware, I have never, ever been a lack for something to talk about or something to say. And Goodnight is declaring his gayness right now. So you know what? It's all good. So you're gay for something. That's all I'm saying. Or the fedora, one of the two. I think you're gay for the fedora, but that's just me. But yeah, we're glad to have everybody here, and thank you so much for being there. Hello, Burner Popcorn account. Glad to have you. Um, Doing real good. We've got a nice little crowd building up on YouTube, building up on Rumble, and on Twitter. I know people are watching. So, okay. I just finished watching a few the Young Turk videos, and it's starting to feel like, I have seen that. I have seen that. Um, Anna Kasparian, I tell you what, that chick is. I don't know if she's moving to the right, or maybe it's a thing she's so far to the left she's moving to the center. But either way, I am here for it. And if she wants to come on over to the dark side, well, we'll just help her right along. Good afternoon, Professor. Folks, if you're not subscribed to this man's channel, give him a sub. He's probably one of the smartest commentators out there, coming or going right now. So absolutely give him a sub. So I gotta find this right now. Hang on. This comment was just way too funny. This is just too good. Z Highness asks, "Are you fedora sexual?" Well, I don't know if Goodnight is fedora sexual or not. So I'm just saying, maybe that's a new thing. I have no idea. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're just waiting for the guest of honor to arrive. And like I say, no biggie. It's all good. She's dealing with some issues related to the bean. Nothing bad. She's fine. She just had an appointment. She sent me a message that, "Hey, I might be running a few minutes late." I'm like, not a problem. I was like, "You do what you got to do." I am never been a want to lack for something to say. So it's all good. We're glad to have all of you guys here. This is Chattin on the Porch. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. The guest of honor is who I affectionately refer to as Lady Mayr. And it looks like the guest of honor is backstage, so doing her thing, and I will give her a minute or two to get set up. And while she does that, I will do the introduction. If you are a devotee of the live stream known as Friday Night Tights, you will know that there are many expressions that have become part of the lore and legend of that show. One of them is, "I stream with my heroes." Well, I'm not going to bother you with the backstory of how that one came about, but I will say this. Today I get to do just that. I get to stream with one of my heroes. The young lady that I'm about to bring on is probably not a stranger for a lot of you, but for those of you who do not know who she is, let me tell you some things about her. Number one, she has got to be one of the hardest working women I've ever seen, regardless of profession. And if you don't believe me, consider the following. She hosts not one, not two, not three, but 4 different programs. One of them is on Compound Media, The Wet Spot, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern. The others are on her social media channel, Simpcast, Sunday nights 9 p.m. Eastern, whatever Wednesday or whatever day she wants to do the live stream. And then there's Mayr in the Morning, a lighthearted look at items in the news. When she's not doing all that, she's doing stand-up comedy in New York City and all around the country. When she's not doing that, she's a frequent guest on various podcasts and live streams. When she's not doing all that, she is on Fox News, on Newsmax, on the Megyn Kelly Show. Good grief, she's doing more guest appearances than I've got an arm length to tell you about. But lest you think that her life is all work, not so. She has definitely carved out time for herself, and more importantly, she has found the one whom her soul loves. They've recently married, and together they are expecting their first child later this spring. Ladies and gentlemen, the Electronic Front Porch is honored to welcome the funniest redheaded comedian since Lucille Ball, the indomitable Chrissie Mayr. Lady Mayr, welcome to my Electronic Front Porch.
What an intro. I don't know how I got the name Lady Mayr. but it's very regal.
Well, it's funny you should ask me that because I'm old. I can't remember crap anymore, and I would more than likely remember Chrissie Mayr because it's a very distinctive name. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, so we got to tag somebody with a nickname. What do we do here? Okay, Mayor is a four-letter word, so's lady. There are other four-letter words. We're not going to use those. Let's go with Lady Mayor and just leave it at that. And I'm like, okay, we can make that work.
Wow. Yeah, I feel like royalty.
Oh, well, you are royalty, dear. You are very important to a lot of people for a lot of
Do you
different
hear an
reasons.
echo from me on your end? I'm hearing myself.
Okay, hang
Uh,
on, I can fix that.
okay. I
It
don't know
might
if
it might be
the chat
it
hears that too.
it might be me. How's that?
Check, check, check. Okay, that's
Check check.
better.
Okay, all right, that was on my end. Never
Okay.
mind. Okay, well, first question. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I was just doing a safe sleep class, which I the it's like it feels like March of 2020, the amount of virtual classes I've been doing because a lot of these are not in person. Like I guess they assume like anybody having a kid is an absolute fucking retard, and they're like, well, we recommend you take all these classes. So I've taken like 4 or 5 already, and today was like safe sleep. It didn't need to be an hour. They should send you an email and be like, "Bitch, sleep them on their back in their crib with nothing else. That's it." And and then they show you these pictures of, like, the ways that babies have died. Like, they're dolls, obviously, but they're like, "Oh, we're reenacting these photos. These are from actual crime scenes." They're not showing you, like, the baby corpse, but they're like, these are pictures of positions that actual real babies have died in." And then it'll be a baby, like, crammed in between an adult bed and the wall, a baby with, like, its head stuck, because you're not supposed to use the sliding down cribs anymore with the sliding wall. It'll be a baby with, like, its head pushed into the baby
No,
into
for
the
the
mattress
love of
with its
God.
body coming out the bottom of the crib. There's one with, like, a stuffed animal fucking, like, in its mouth, like, suffocated to death, and I'm like, "Oh, well, at least he died with their favorite toy." Um, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I can just imagine. I mean, I remember when my sister had her sons, and yes, there was a lot then too. But in today's 21st century world, where everyone's trying to make sure that we got everything covered, we're covering everything, we've got it, no problem. Every conceivable situation we have thought of, we're good. And it's like you poor expectant mother's got to be like, for the love of God, will you just let me have this child and go on with it for heaven's sake?
It is funny though because they always have chat rooms, and, like, this one I just did, I was actually on camera. I could have unmuted my mic and taken a few liberties and maybe done a few jokes, but I really held back, and, like, they let us watch they made us watch this video of this guy, this poor guy, 'cause they're talking about SIDS, whatever, the sudden infant death syndrome, and
Mhm.
this poor man was like, "I never thought it would happen to me. I was home, I was on the couch watching the game, and then I woke up and the baby was dead." I was like, and then his wife is sitting there next to him like like they'll never he's never living that down. He can't enjoy a Monday Night Football ever again. Like
No,
can't watch sports ever again. He probably I would probably have PSTD around like couches. I would be like, I'd be like, I can't sit on a couch. I can't fall asleep. I'm like, that's gonna fuck you up for life, I think.
no
It's obviously
kidding.
horrible that the baby died, but I felt bad for the husband.
Yeah, really. It's like all I'm trying to do is just sit here and just yeah, just crazy, just
Like, no
crazy.
one's like, this was an obvious mistake, and then you read there was this mom in Ohio. This just came out today. She went to Puerto Rico for 10 days, left her 16-month-old at home in a pack and play, and then when she came back, obviously the baby was, like, dead, covered in, like, urine and feces. I'm like, "What the fuck is wrong?"
What the
Like,
hell?
this woman needs to be institutionalized, throw it into a meat grinder, like, whatever. It's just, like, it's so sick. Like, it's crazy that we still have to hear these stories, but
Oh
I'm just
my
like,
God, that's madness.
she just got on a plane, went to Puerto Rico, and then she's in court being like, "I was really stressed out. I really needed a marg." It's like, how How do you defend that?
Uh, uh, I can just
Yeah.
see her standing before the judge going, "Your Honor, I just needed some me time." Judge is like, "Woman, you've got a child. What the hell's the
Yeah.
matter with you?" It's
Do
like,
what we all do. Make a margarita at home, okay? And, like,
exactly.
do what
You
you
know,
have to do.
indeed, indeed. And I want to thank somebody straight out of the chute who was just exceedingly generous. Thank you very much, Miss Jessica, for the super
Ooh.
sticker. I do appreciate it. By the way, Chrissy, Jessica, Chrissy. Now, to let you know, your tales have become somewhat legendary with this lady, Jessica, who cuts my hair. And I'll be like, oh, God, you won't believe what Chrissy Mayr did this
This
time.
is
And
your
it's like,
barber? Oh,
this is my
wow.
barber. Yes, the woman that keeps me looking quasi human, which is kind of nice.
It's
At
rare
least
to
people.
find a hot woman barber. Usually they're, like, Dominican dudes or, like, black dudes that talk to you for longer than they cut your hair.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like they're stretching out the conversation thinking that the tip's gonna get bigger, to which I'm thinking, "You realize this works in an inverse ratio, right? I mean, the longer you keep talking, the less your tip's gonna get, okay? It's like, cut my hair." Not that
Right.
this is true of Jessica, she and I have BS'd each other. We kinda have an unspoken tradition where, um, I've been going to her for Lord knows, I forget how many years now, and I will always make it a point to bring a bottle of wine.
Ooh.
Well, no, because I mean, look, if you're gonna cut my hair and take the time to do it, I mean, first of all, I'm gonna pay you, obviously. Yes, I should. But I'm also gonna, take the time to make sure that, bless your heart, your day is when you end your day, you can go home, sip something, and be like, oh, thank God he was my last client of the day.
That's really sweet. I don't know of anybody bringing their barbers wine. I feel like you're dropping a little bit of game her way, if I'm being totally honest. Like, the wine is a little like, "Hey, if you want someone to drink this with, I'm available, and I just got a new haircut, so I look great."
Well, Miss Jessica is taken.
For now.
However,
Not with that attitude, Porchy. I'm just saying. You could give her a
okay,
bottle of whiskey and see if things escalate.
we're 10 minutes in, and I have totally lost control of this one. So it's like,
Okay. I'm
I
just
know, I'm
saying.
just kidding.
Summer's
I'm just kidding.
coming. Summer's coming, you know?
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, I tell you. Oh gosh, I this is gonna be so much fun. I mean, you have got so much going on in your life, and there's so much that's happened uh in just the brief time I've been like a fan of yours, and it's just like, oh my gosh, where do you start? But for people who are maybe watching this live stream or will watch this live stream later, and you will because daggone it, I'm a good host and she's a great guest. So between the two of us, this thing's gonna be so much fun. You
We're
know
gonna
you're gonna
get
want to watch
at
it.
least 10 or 15 views. I'm sure of it.
I, you know, I was gonna be optimistic and go for maybe 20 or 25, but it's probably more realistic the number you're calling out. So
I'm just feeling
anyway, but
it.
for those who have not ever been introduced to you before, give a little bit of your background. How long have you been doing stand up? And I guess the question that
Ooh.
I've always been mildly curious about, when was that moment in your life or your career or whatever when you knew that you wanted to make helping people laugh and helping entertain, that you wanted to make the career out of it?
There were a lot of little moments. There was not, like, one big moment. I started stand-up, like, in 2010, 2011, and that was after I did a one-woman show, which ran for about 6 weeks at a theater in New York City, and that one-woman show only happened after I did, like, 5 years of improv, which is, like, it's, like, skill building, it's, like, theater games, it's a lot of actors and theater types. It's not anything that anybody thinks they can make a career out of, you're just doing it 'cause it's, like, fun and goofy and you make friends and it's people who think they're funny, but also actors, some stand-ups, and then you also have, like, people working in the corporate world who wanna, help their public speaking skills, and that 'cause stand-up was always really intimidating to me. Um, I interned at when I was in college, I thought I wanted to be a reporter, like a news reporter, and that's why I interned at Dateline when I was a junior, and I was really bored by it, and then I interned at Conan when I was a senior, because he was still doing his show in New York City out of 30 Rock, and then I was like, "Okay, well, for sure, I know that comedy is more my scene because I'm just not serious enough for news." And that's what led me to kind of start doing improv. And then, but it always was very intimidating to me, the idea of just like getting up there and like you have to make people laugh. But then over time you start thinking about like your life, your lived experience, and like your sort of message you hear when you start doing stand up. People are like, you have to find your voice, and I never knew what that meant. And then
Mhm.
you get into your 30s, you're like, oh, okay, what's your, not like a motto, but your outlook, your and you become like just a sum of all your experiences. That's why I never understand when you see like a teenager doing stand up. I'm like, that's cute, but you haven't lived enough life to make somebody laugh because you've barely been alive. I also feel that way when I see like a 25-year-old doing stand up, but it happens. And so I think it was definitely like I remember first couple shows, like it is a feeling of a rush. You're on stage, you're getting like all this attention and validation. And what attracted me to stand up was this feeling that it's, even though it's a bunch of a room full of strangers, which would give the average person stage fright, for me, it felt like very free because I was raised in a house where you couldn't really, I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I could be honest about my feelings or honest about like what was going on, because I was just, you know, we weren't really honest with one another. We're just kind of passive aggressive. And I don't know if people were raised similarly to me, but this feeling of like if something bothers you, like get over it. Like don't make a big deal out of everything. Like don't complain. If you're cold, put a sweater on. If you're hot, stick your head in the fridge. Like nobody you know what I mean? Like your parents have enough problems. They're having money trouble. They're having marital problems.
Yeah.
Like just shut your yap and suck it up, basically. And then as you get to be an adult, you're like, hey, I have issues. You think you have issues with this parent maybe doesn't care about my feelings. I don't feel like I can express myself. I don't know if I had like daddy issues per se, but we didn't really have a great relationship. Like I didn't feel like we could just chat. I was like, he was a big spanker growing up, so I was always was sort of like afraid of him. So something about stand up that was so attractive to me was like this sense of the stakes are so low because this is a room full of strangers. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. You're not going to
Mhm.
like have an awkward Thanksgiving or an awkward birthday or get together. Like you can say how you feel and you can walk away and be like, wow, I didn't get in trouble for that. So which is actually the opposite. Most people are like, oh, I'm so scared to get in front of all these strangers. For me, it was the opposite. I was like, oh wow, nobody I know is in here. Cool. I can be really honest for the first time, if that makes sense.
It does. No, it does. I mean, there's I mean, granted, it's not like I sit around and study the psychology of stand-up comedy, but there's something almost confessional to the way that you guys do what you do because, and the source material that you guys get from comedy is always I always find it really interesting because I was watching your interview on the Chrissie Mayr podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and other places. Did I get all that okay? Is that fine?
Yes, all the places.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I was watching the Chrissie Mayr podcast yesterday where you had Akira the Don on, and you guys were having a discussion about comfort in doing stand up. For you, how long did it take you before you're like, I'm on stage? I don't necessarily always have to take the deep breath before I go in front of the microphone. And does that feeling ever totally go away for a stand-up comedian?
I I wouldn't say I ever fully feel comfortable, because to me that like you have to be extremely married to the present moment. Like yeah, there's jokes and material that that you can do, that you're comfortable, but I never feel like physically comfortable on stage because I feel like I have to be on such high alert. It's like you're keeping track of all of your jokes, like basically in a list a list in your head.
Mhm.
If something's out of order, you got to be like, okay, I did this out of order. Don't forget this part. If you get distracted by somebody in the audience, all right, make sure you didn't forget a punchline, forget a premise. You're constantly like shuffling and reshuffling sometimes. But some comics don't do that. Some comics never do any crowd work. They have their order. They never like sway from that. But for me, I'm happy to be distracted by the crowd or something fun, like acknowledge something weird or funny that happens. I'm constantly like a neighborhood watch, like just looking at the audience, see how they're reacting, see who's a tough cookie, who's having a good time. What can I generalize? What can I stereotype? Like, what declarations can I make about the people in this audience? How can I tie that in to the material I've already done? How can I set up the material I'm about to do? So none of that is comfortable. And of course, you're always like, I'm about to do a new joke. Is it gonna bomb? Is it bombing? Am I currently bombing? Oh shit. Like, every once in a while, like I remember I was telling somebody else about this. Like the worst I ever bombed was a show in Syracuse where my dad just decided to show up and it was like it really fucked me up. And but
You had no
that
idea he was coming.
no, I knew my uncle and aunt were gonna be there, but then he showed up and I was like, fuck. It was this added. I'm like, this is why I do stand up, motherfuckers, because like to that, you know what I mean? Like I don't want you to hear these things. Like it's not that I didn't want him to know me at the time, but I just feel like there's a stand-up me. There's the what I
Mhm.
and that is not who I actually really am. And I think the times that my dad has heard my stand-up, like, he thinks that that's me, and then he would then feel like he could talk to me about various, like, adult topics, which I did not wanna hear about. Like, there was a time where he talked about to me, like, this was before my mom uh, had cancer, got sick, and died, but it was, like, right after my
Mhm.
brother got married, and he launched into this whole thing about, like, your mom and I haven't had sex in a while, we haven't, like, been intimate," and I'm like, "Fuck, like, I don't wanna hear about this, you're not supposed to be telling your daughter this shit, whether she's, 20 or 50 years old," like, and I was like, I feel like I gave him the impression that because of my set, because of some of my
Mhm.
more, like, adult jokes, it made him feel like he could just talk to me that we're not father-daughter, and that
Right.
really bothered me because I just felt like that was, like, such a boundary. I'm like, "That's my mom." Like, I don't nobody wants to hear that about their fucking like, you talk to your buddies about that shit, you talk to a therapist about that shit, like, you don't tell your daughter.
Yeah.
Um, so but again, like, we all wanna be understood by our parents, and, like, sometimes that happens, sometimes it never does, but it's just for me, it's like an added layer. Like when I was in Vegas in May, I uh my sister lives in Vegas and I said, "Don't come to the show." Like I just don't need it. I just don't need the extra stress. I don't need the like did you think it was okay? Like, did, did I say, did I mention jokes about my family? How does everyone feel about what I said? Is everyone,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
do you need to have 2 hours of my time before and after the show? And like that time, man, I'm really bitching. The time before a show is so fucking precious. Like,
Mhm.
that's why sometimes I won't talk to people. I'll hide. I'll either hide in the green room, I'll hide in the bathroom. It's like it feels like any conversation is like an energy vampire. Like that hour leading up to a show, I need to be like completely almost like squirreled away, just thinking in my notes. Maybe I'll pop out, look at the crowd, see if I can make some generalizations. Okay, what kind of people are here? And then once the show starts, I'm listening very intently to the host, to the feature. What are people laughing at? What other jokes are people are doing? What can I piggyback off of? So it's like I'm not the kind of person who can just chill and bullshit with anybody before a show.
Right.
It's like a it's like a I'm about to go into surgery here. Like I don't want to fucking hear about your day, even if it's somebody I love. And I've made that mistake several times. Like you let your friends into the green room when you're on the road or whatever, because part of you wants to be like, "Look at this lavish green room. Look, I've really made it." Ooh, who wants a cold water? There's like the hosty part of you, but then there's the comic part of you that you're like, that this is a mistake. I need to be focusing. So, and it's interesting too because the last time I performed in Raleigh, which is near where my brother lives, he came to a show and it was nearly sold out. There were a ton of, FNT fellowship fans there
Mhm.
after, and anyone who's listening who happened to be at that show knows that when the show was over, we had a blast. We went around to, like, a couple different bars, like, one bar wouldn't take us, and we swore
Right.
it was because of, like, our political leanings, like, we were just, like, belligerent. We were like, "What the fuck? What do you mean we can't drink here? We wanna spend our money." It was so much fun, and there was this moment where, like, my brother was hanging out, and there was, like, a line of people waiting to chat, and I will take all the time to chat with people after a show,
Yeah.
like, they're why I'm here, they're why I'm not slowly dying at my day job anymore. I thought I would have this moment where my brother where he would be like, "Wow, like, you're doing great, like, you're really doing this, like, you have fans, like, people wanna see you." Like, I was just there's this moment where I was, like, desperate for him to see me as something more, like, something other than maybe my 14-year-old self, or I feel like in a sense everyone in my family, they're the way they think of me is frozen, maybe during my improv years of me spending, like, $400 in improv class, and I do a show once a week, and it's a hobby, and I feel like everyone in my family just sort of froze right there,
Yeah.
and they never
They never
thought
see you
to
different than that.
never
Mhm.
and
Yep.
that's rough sometimes because I think a lot of us just want our families to, like, really you wanna feel seen, and I'll have people I like you or people I stream with or people I chat with on YouTube will know me better, have a better sense of what I'm up to than people in my immediate family. Like, I don't think anyone in my family has listened to my album. I don't think like, I just had a baby shower last Sunday. My sister was there. One of the questions on the crossword was like, "What's Chrissy's Sunday night, YouTube show?" I was like, "I'm pretty sure nobody in my family could knows what Simpcast is." Like, there's just such a lack of curiosity about what I do, and I've come to terms with it, but, like, it blows my mind. I mean, thank God we can, make our not make our own families, but make our own friends and connections and, like, have our own, groups going on. And I don't know if anybody listening has experienced something like this, but not that you're doing it for them or ultimately trying to you're doing it because you have to impress your family, but it's just like, oh, man, it's like you have to just be okay with the fact that just because 'cause you're related to somebody doesn't mean they're gonna care about what you do.
Well, you're not alone in that because I just popped this up here real quick. Christian Watson is a I hate calling him young fellow because it's not exactly true, but then again, it is whip smart guy, and he can absolutely relate to what you're going through. I find, I mean, and just to tell you, he's probably one of the coolest dudes I've met through this crazy social media thing. But speaking of albums, which album would you be referring to? You wouldn't be talking about this one, would you? This thing right over here.
Yes, of course.
Oh my
That's my
goodness.
that's my first baby.
And oh, what a baby it was.
Mhm.
Definitely learned a lot about Chrissie Mayr's comedy stand-up style, which I guess kind of takes me to another question that I've got. When I mean, your comedy style, I would call, let's see, conversational comedy. It's kind of like you're up on stage, you got the microphone, and it's kind of like, you won't believe what just happened to me. Let me tell you about it. And then boom, you're off and running. Um, when you're thinking about or when you're coming up with material that you want to add into what you're doing, what's kind of the inspiration? Is it like life experience? It's just you're walking along, you see something, it strikes you funny, you're like, man, I gotta jot this down. This might be something I can build something off of.
Oh, for
Where
sure. Like, sometimes it's geographical, like, if I think it's gonna be something that people in that area would appreciate, as much as I can know about, like, the local town, like, weird customs, sports teams, whatever. Like, I remember I did Houston last August, and I was making fun of the Astros, and I'm like, I'm like, "They fucking stole the World Series a couple of years ago. They were banging they cheated via banging on garbage cans and shit like that," and, like, I merely pointed that out, but a crowd has never turned on me faster than when I just simply stated the obvious. I was like,
oh,
"Wow,
oh,
okay, you guys."
oh yeah, you
And
don't
I
go after
don't
somebody's sports team. No, that's just, I
no,
mean, you
no.
can go after religion, you can go after sex, you can go after anything else. You go after a sports team, man, and it is on like Donkey Kong.
I was like, "If you guys are really gonna defend this cheating, all right, that's on you." Like, it's kinda stupid. Um,
Mic
and then,
drop.
like, some guy was asleep in the corner, that was really fun. Just
Oh,
like,
good.
what are you gonna do to yeah, then that's the best. Those are the moments are the best because then you kind of involve like, all right, who's sitting on either side? Who is this guy with? Are we gonna mess with him? Are we gonna, it's fun. It feels
Mhm.
like you're at a sleepover and you're about to put somebody's hand in warm water.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
but but yeah, like also if there's something kooky that happens to me right before a show, like I'll totally talk about it. Whether it gets a laugh or not. Like I at this point have a pretty good sense of like what is funny and what is not. It may not be the most like polished thing, but I know if it's a funny premise or a funny story, like it's worth saying on stage.
Oh, absolutely true. And folks, if you're just joining us, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I am joined by the ever funny Chrissie Mayr. If you're not subscribed to her channel, please give her a sub because she's trying to get to 100,000 and she's not that far away. So every little bit helps. If you're not subscribed to
Ooh.
my channel, please give me a sub. I would appreciate it. So, speaking of stand up and getting people going in the crowd, you have one of the most uncanny knacks for causing controversy without really trying real hard. Now, let me go through a list of groups that you have somehow otherwise managed to offend. Let's see. Blacks, trans, black trans who are black, lesbians, LGBTs who are black and lesbian LGBTs who are trans, Malaysians, white Malaysians, black Malaysians, Malaysians who are white or black and trans, uh, and so on and so on. Am I leaving anybody out?
I've yet to tackle the Alaskan trans
Okay.
or
Okay.
Icelandic trans,
Okay.
and I have not really. Maybe I think Indians have sort of been safe for too long from me personally, even though like Asians for sure, I've upset woke Asians, Malaysians, definitely blacks, Jews. So I think Indians, I think it's their time.
Oh, wait a
But
minute. Wait
again,
a minute.
you don't plan these things. They just happen.
Well, I forgot one. The Jews. You
The
haven't.
Jews, I was written up. There was a guy who wrote me up for something. He thought I did said something anti-Semitic on an FNT, like maybe this was last year at some point,
All right.
like in the fall.
Scratch it off. She got the Jews. Okay.
I
Um,
got the Jews.
she got the Jews. Now, the reason that I bring this up is, and this is the part that I find ironic about all the controversialness that surrounds Chrissie Mayr. Usually you get into this stuff simply because, wait for it, folks, she told a joke and it just boom. It's like, and you're standing up there, you're telling jokes, and all of a sudden somebody just gets bent out of shape, and then all of a sudden it's a thing. I mean, yeah, and I guess that kind of gets to my question. I mean, for the past 25 years, in one form or another, folks in your particular line of work, there's been such an attempt to, and I finally figured out the word I wanted to use, sanitize what you guys say. And I know you, Gino, Anthony, and a whole bunch of others have been, in your own way, pushing back on this thing. Given where it is right now, what do you think is the state of, like, let's just say free speech in comedy? Is it getting any better, getting any worse, staying the same? What's going on in your line of work?
There's like the micro individual level, and then there's like on the whole, it's tricky because the normal pathways to success have always been controlled by the mainstream. Like you have your agents, your managers, um, those are the ones that typically get you in at the big chain clubs that like have
Mhm,
multiple locations across the country, and sometimes you're able to get in places. Oh, like my manager reps 5 people at my level, but also 5 people at the Burt Kreischer, Tony Hinchcliffe level, or, Rogan or whatever, any household name that you know.
mhm,
And those relationships can help you get into places that someone by themselves wouldn't really have the access to or wouldn't have, like, the selling power. So that's, like, mainstream path. That's also the mainstream path that gets you onto, like, a late night comedy show or an SNL or a sitcom or, like, commercial acting. Like, there are and that's what we call, like, the old model, and the old model was very much disrupted by social media. I think very much, I think to a degree, like, yeah, Instagram, TikTok, once you could put videos out there, that really opened up everything, and the pandemic
Yeah.
too, of course. Like, that you have someone like Matt Rife, who had a huge TikTok audience, could sell out a whole tour a year in advance, because he developed a huge following on TikTok and is like, so there's people who develop their followings outside of the mainstream, and then there's people who have to develop their followings outside the mainstream, and like people like me, because I have unacceptable political opinions or unacceptable tweets.
What?
And I'm not even that edgy, honestly, but
No, really, you're
I think
not.
it's like a lot of it is what your reputation is. My affiliation with Compound Media, being buddies with like Kumia, Gavin McGinnis, Alex Stein. Um, it's like the idea of you is like not as marketable. But if someone were to come see my headlining set, they'd be like, "Oh, like you're funny and you're not really it's really nothing crazy."
Mhm.
So, I think because the hill that I always die on is free speech and never apologizing for jokes, I think I come off as less marketable or less, I don't know. It's hard though, but then you go back and forth, you're like, "Well, maybe I'm just not funny enough," but then you see people who are represented by these big, management firms, you're like, "Oh, I have way more followers than them, like, I've been in it more years than them, I think I'm more talented than them," and then they're just they're just not as, controversial, or they don't have any, opinions out there that are unmarketable, I guess. So, the industry is changing so much. Plus, as we know, Hollywood is in the dumper. They've been afraid to really write or produce comedy films, any kind of movies or shows, easily what the last 10 years,
Yeah.
like conservatively. So Hollywood's afraid to touch comedy. And then you have these smaller outlets like the Daily Wire who are trying to do comedy. It's a good try. They need to keep trying. They need to maybe involve
Agreed.
more people who do this for a living. Like, not anyone can just write a comedy script, you know? Uh, but I like that they're trying. I like that they're attempting it because there is a huge void in the market right now. So, it's the sense of, like, there's no defined path anymore to success, which freaks people out, like, comics that are maybe in their 50s, 60s, like, "Oh, shit," like, the way I came up is no longer the way to make it in the industry, whereas
Mhm.
if you're starting now, stand up or comedy, you don't even have to move to an LA or a New York. Now it's Austin. Now Austin's like what you would call a stand-up comedy city. You could blow up online and get locked in with an agency that's like, "Hey, you have 2 million followers on TikTok. I know you don't know how to do stand-up, but could you figure out something to do on stage for an hour so we can sell tickets?" And that's how, a lot of acts are created nowadays. Because I always look at the schedule anytime I go to a mainstream club, and I'll be like, "Oh, who's that?" And I'll be like, "Oh, they started on TikTok." Oh, they're not, like, really a stand-up by trade, but their management is like, "Figure it out, we'll sell tickets to it." So, and you can't really begrudge the clubs or the management for that, because the clubs are just trying to keep their lights on however the
Sure.
best way they can, and you have to come to the realization, like, being a talented stand-up is not enough anymore. You have to be your own promoter, your own,
Mhm.
marketer, your own basically, like, one-man band. You have to do it all by yourself, and if you don't like that, tough shit, because, like, no one has to be doing this. It's it's a pleasure to be able to do this, like, to be able to make your living even partially doing this, I think is a huge gift and an honor. So, it's like, if you don't like it, go choose another career that has more security.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I had your dear friend Keanu C. Thompson on here ages, and I've got to catch up with her at some point. But we were getting into the subject because I asked her, I was like, and part of it was generational. It's like I utilize social media in a very limited sort of way. Keanu, you, others are just bam, bam, bam. It's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's this, it's that. And I asked her one time, I was like, how critical is it in stand-up comedy in the world in which you find yourself now, versus, let's just, I'm going to pop a name out there, the Reverend Bob Levy. Okay. Or somebody who came up in a different generation of doing stand-up comedy and they went through that. And she's like, oh, it's absolutely critical. You've got to utilize social media today. And I'm like, okay, can see where in stand-up comedy, I can see where that comes from. And before we go further, thank you for the super chat from the Indian Jesus. Chrissy is a goat. Glad to see you guys together. Thank you, Indian Jesus. He had me on his channel recently as a guest, and very nice guy, and I will highly recommend him to you. But since you brought up Keanu and then you got into Compound, let's go through, in the time we've got, a list of loves in your life in one form or another. Compound Media. For people who don't know, how did you first get associated with Compound Media, and when did it start?
My mom died of one of the worst cancers you can have, August 2nd, 2018. And as I was kind of dealing with that, grieving with that, brain cancer, wouldn't recommend. Um, I was like, okay, I need something to fill this void. I need to thrust myself into my goals. I need
Gotta
to do
find a
something
distraction.
productive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I need to do more podcasts. I need to just do more appearances. So I was going on Compound Media, Gas Digital, like really whoever. There was a small podcast studio over at the club at Stand Up New York. There were a lot of little like pockets of podcasting going on in New York City. And I really gelled with Compound Media, and I'll always be loyal and grateful to Gino Bisconti, who now is the current and Keanu's fiance. He's the host of In Hot Water. He used to, in 2018, run the show with this guy named Aaron Berg. Aaron left to go like do his own thing. But Gino's still hosting the show there, and they gave me so much freedom. I was like, hey, I want to come on and do like a character of, because there was a story, like an example of like there was this woman who died in a clothing donation bin. Like it was over the winter. She climbed in to sleep and couldn't get out, and she died in there. And I was like, I would love to do a character of this woman, like, but she's alive still, and like what she's like what kind of a woman would try to just live in a clothing donation bin. And I would write out like a full summary of whatever kooky character I wanted to do. And they'd be like, come on and just do it. They'd be like, you don't have to write anything out. Like just, and I was like, wow, I couldn't believe the freedom that I had. And they just trusted me to be funny. And I remember I would come on, like I would bring a pie or some kind of baked good because I would just be so grateful for the opportunity. I'd always come with some sort of like pie or something. And
Mm-hmm.
then th- yeah, just started going on more regularly and pitched my own show. I think it was like a year later, June of 2019. And then it was accepted July of 2019. And that's the Wet Spot,
Wow.
the show I do every Monday on Compound. Because at the time there were no female-led shows, and I wanted something that kind of tackled the soft subjects, like dating, relationships, but I also appreciated the old school Howard Stern, like goofy people in studio, anything can happen. Like we've had episodes where we had a woman doing like anal ring toss, or we've had someone get their ass eaten on the show. Like this doesn't happen every time.
Now, folks,
Um,
lest you think she's joking,
because
she's not.
I don't want anybody to take that ass eating for granted. It's special occasions only.
Yeah, there you go.
But tried to keep it fun and like the spirit of old school Howard Stern, or like old school like Opie and Anthony, like funny random shit can happen. But usually it's a mix of comedian guests and adult film star guests, or like whoever's in town, journalist types, political types. And that show is just a ton of fun, and it's completely uncensored because it's a subscriber network. So it's like anything goes, spicy takes, nudity, like whatever. So
Now, for everybody who has ever watched Compound Media, and take this next phrase in the spirit in which I intended, because it's intended well. You guys look like the biggest collection of village idiots in the greater New York City area. I mean, you look, to borrow Rush Limbaugh's old phrase, you guys look like you're having more fun than human beings should be allowed to have. Take us
aw.
inside the Oh yeah, yeah. Take us inside the walls of Compound Media. I mean, you guys hit the door, and how fast does it take for, like, hilarity to ensue because you guys are having that much fun?
It really depends on, like, the show. Sometimes I'll have guests on who are, like, a complete dud, like, just because someone has a job where they are on camera, I'll just say, does not mean that they have a good personality, or just because they are on camera making money in one way with
Mm-hmm.
certain other holes doesn't mean that their mouth holes are good.
Yeah,
So,
this is
like, some
true.
you'll occasionally have a guest where, like, "Alright, gotta carry this person, gotta make them look good, gotta, like" you're spinning all the plates yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like any other job, like, some days it feels hard, and some days it feels easy, and it's fun, and some days it's like, "Wow, there's all just my friends on this show, on this episode." Um, Everyone is different, though, like, I like to get to the studio, or at least to the area, like, at least an hour and a half early, sometimes 2 hours early. I hate being rushed, I have to be early, like, same thing with
Mm-hmm.
stand-up shows. Um, I will look through my notes, like, I'll look at the news, I'll be like, "Are there any funny, like, sexually oriented news stories or dating stories?" Or, uh so sometimes I'll bounce off those topics, but then sometimes I won't need any news topics, and we'll just it'll just be the guests talking about, like, what's up with them or their whatever they're promoting. We'll just be able to keep a conversation rolling really well. And, sometimes if we have, like, a porn star on, we'll end up, like, playing a snippet of their porn, like, and I'll be like, "Oh, wow, you look so great," Not that we're, like, we're enjoying it
Wow.
in the way that people typically watch porn, but just kind of, like, almost like we're, like like adjunct professors, like, "Oh, yes, interesting."
Yeah, you did great in that foursome. I mean, yeah, one guy's coming
Like,
from one side, one guy's
"Oh,
coming from the other. I mean, look at
wow,
that.
you
I mean,
look overwhelmed." And then, like, Gino's got his own way that he works. 'Cause he's got a 4-day-a-week show that's 2 hours long. Mine is just 1 day a week, and it's 1 hour long, but I always go late. I always go, like, an hour and a half, basically.
oh,
So and then Kumia, same thing, like, he'll sometimes he likes guests on, sometimes he doesn't. Like, sometimes he'll and now he's going back and forth from New York to South Carolina, so he's kind of recalibrating his process too.
I was gonna say, I mean, not that I get to watch Kumia's show every day, but I think, and granted, I know he's gone through some health problems in the past recent months, but I think ever since he's moved to South Carolina, he looks more at peace now than I maybe have seen him, just more relaxed. I mean,
Mm.
not that you can really get under Anthony's skin unless you really egregiously piss him off. But I mean, he just looks relaxed, happy, just he's just in a good place. He really does.
Yeah, that's what happens, Porchy, when you move to an all-white neighborhood. You just get things get just calm down. I don't know.
Like I said in my advertisements, folks, you never quite know what the woman's going to say, but thank God she does it because it's hilarious every time she does. Um, okay, FNT. Um, all of us who watch Friday Night Tights, for those who do, see you guys, live streaming for like 3 hours or so. What we don't see is the stuff backstage. And I've heard Gary Beekler make the remark that either he made it or it was Ryan who made the statement. If we ever showed you what it was like backstage, if you think we're hilarious out here, you wouldn't know what to think if you saw some of
Oh,
this.
they're just saying that to make them sound funnier than they are.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know. There's I re I don't know. I think it's just that's a fun thing to say. Not to, like,
well,
shit on any of them, but, like, if there's, like, a really funny joke said backstage, I'll be like, "Oh, no, like, we need to say that live." So maybe we'll repeat something that was said backstage, or I'll set somebody up, or someone will set me up to say something that was said backstage that was funny.
well, but the point that I'm getting to is this. I mean, the bond that you guys have in that group, you can't fake that. I mean, when you guys are out there, it's like there's genuine love, respect, everything that most people see. How tight is that bond? Or I mean, how much has that come to be one of the touchstones in your life? Because there are moments you're not able to be there, but when you are there, it just seems like that group, for all the insanity that is FNT, helps ground you in everything you're doing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, and each one of us would probably have a different answer for this, but I find that my doing at this point, yeah, I've definitely done a one-on-one, at least one one-on-one, if not several one-on-ones with each of them. Those for me are what really make me feel close and get to know each of them. Like, I remember when, like, Disparu was coming on more regularly. I think we were covering, I forget, like, what particular show it was.
Was it Wheel of Time or something like
Yeah,
that?
okay, because
Okay.
he's, like, an expert in that, and then I had him on for a one-on-one, and I was like, "Well," I learned so much about him, and I got to know him so well, and I was like, "Okay, like, yeah, I get why you're so good at what you do and why people love you," you learn so much, and so I really appreciate, like, just and same thing with, like, Az too, and I feel like I can, like, the last time I have him on, like, oh, we can talk about his kind of, like, fitness journey, which is not something he's talking about on FNT at all, or maybe he doesn't
Right.
get into it that much on his own channel. So I always like to get into topics with people that they may not cover any place else. I like to kinda uncover a different side of a person that maybe you don't get to see very much of. Not that I want someone to be like, "Oh, vulnerable, get gay," or but just it is nice to see, like, another, like, side of somebody. But yeah, I would consider, I mean, like, X-Ray Girl came to my wedding. Like, she's on Simcast all the time. We're so close, like, I chat with her all the time about, like, sometimes pregnancy stuff, and, like, Gary, I would consider a close friend. Like, we'll talk on the phone, like, if there's something going on, like, it's a big deal when you go from, like, a texting relationship with somebody to, like, oh, you're on the phone call level. Um, so I just think they're all, like, such great people and such great friends, and I feel like they're all such great resources too, like, when it comes
Yeah.
to dealing with, like, YouTube, or there's so many, like, things to know about. Um, yeah, I think they're all just awesome, and they inspire me to keep working hard. Like, none of those guys ever take their foot off the gas. So,
No. No, it's
yeah.
I mean, Gary just crossed over the 1 million mark on his channel, which, I mean, just for me who's starting out in social media and looking at where he started and where he's gotten it to, it's like you say, it's very inspiring. It truly is. He's just,
Yeah.
and his backstory for people who don't know it, go sub if you're not subbed to Nerdrotic, go sub to that channel, because when you find out Gary's backstory of where he's been and where he is now, it will really amaze you. And before we go any further, I want to thank Mr. Goodnight. If you don't laugh at fart jokes or sounds, well, okay, folks, you know where he stands on this issue. So there you go. And thank you
Mhm.
very much for the super chat, sir. Now, speaking of scoundrels and interesting people in your life, there's a man that you are often associated with. I don't know how you feel about all that after all these years, because his name keeps getting thrown up every time you are mentioned. But I don't know if you know who this guy
Aw.
is. But I've heard that this Frank Pellegrino guy and you are kind of tight, But I mean, these could be wild rumors for all I know. It just could be.
Things are getting kind of serious. Yeah.
Well, yet he put the ring on it. That's got to get serious. Now
Aw.
there's a bean involved. So I mean, it's getting kind of dicey here.
It is
Um,
crazy. Is it weird that I'm, like, due in a month and I still can't fully grasp, like, that this is actually gonna happen? Like, I don't know. Maybe this is I don't know if this is common for women, but I'm still, like, every day I wake up and, like, getting out of bed is definitely the most painful part of your day, because 'cause you're like, "Ugh," like, I can't get up or sit down or do anything without making grunting noises, but, like, I'll just
well,
look down, I'll be like
that has
I'll
nothing
just
to
be
do with
like,
pregnancy. I've got that same problem right now, and I definitely not pregnant. So
I cannot believe that, like, this is what I look like, this is what's going on, like, it's weird. Maybe I'm in denial.
well, how for people who don't know, how long have you and Frank known each other, dated, the whole kit and caboodle?
This November, it'll be 10 years.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Congratulations. So, okay, who first caught whose eye? Because this is one question I've
Ooh.
never quite gotten the not that I was necessarily like calling up Frank, going, "Hey, man, how did this? Who noticed who first, and who put the first move on?"
That's really interesting because he okay, he used to work with this comedy partner, like, that he started this comedy business with, and I think he was the first one to book me on a show or try to book me on a show or, like, had scouted me because they were booking all shows in Westchester and I was in, like, the New York City scene, and I remember the first show I met him at, like, I didn't really notice him, probably it was probably, like, April of 2014, and
Wow.
then it was, like, out here in Westchester, and, we were like ships passing. Like, I remember he mentioned, like, he saw me going to the bathroom, but I didn't really see him. I didn't really and there's a group photo of all of us from that night, the other comics and, like, him and his comedy partner, and it's just is like yeah, look at that picture. I'm like, "Oh, that's a person I don't know yet." And then I remember because I was still with my ex at the time, it was a pretty controlling relationship, so I was, like, very worried about just the idea of being caught because he already was convinced, like, I'm cheating or everyone's trying to fuck me, like, he was constantly vigilant about any male I would ever talk to, and it just, like, anyone who's been in kind of a controlling relationship, I was, like, constantly on edge, like, he would always say, like, "You gotta wear your hair back all the time, don't wear so much makeup," like, he was somebody who was trying to slowly, like, dim my light over time.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, by the end of it, I was just so paranoid, but I met up with Frank again at, like, um, a roast of this mutual friend of ours, and I remember I was, like, so nervous just having small talk with him. I was like, "Oh, you gotta book my, boyfriend." Like, I was, like, trying to pitch my boyfriend at the time to him,
So you had
who I
your own form of Stockholm syndrome,
who he
basically. That's
didn't
what you're
think was all that great, it was just like, "Eh, okay," because I was just so worried yeah, because he just there were so many fights and they would go so late in the night, and I just was, like, so afraid of that, and, yeah, and then we broke up June of 2014, and then Frank came to a show I was hosting every month at the Stonewall Inn. He came, I think it was, like, November 1st, 2014, he came to check out a show, and I remember at the time, like, my sister was single because she always was single, and, she had gone, like, 10 years without a date or something, and she was at that show, and she was sitting in the front row, and I was like, "Oh," I was like, "You should go sit with her, there's a table in the front row," and he was like, "No, I'm, like, kind of industry," and, like, industry people don't sit in the regular audience, they kind of, like, hang in the back, and, it took me a minute to, like, put that together, like, he wasn't there to just, like, be an audience member. I mean, he was there to check out the comics, but I think it's funny that my first impulse was to, like, pass him off on my sister who just was, like, desperately so single at the time. And then after that show, me and Frank and my sister, we all went out to drinks, um, at this place called the Rose Bar, which my friend Sydney was bartending at, and it was, like, a nice, like, cocktail bar. And I think I had gone to the bathroom and my sister said to him, like, "Hey, have you ever thought about, like, asking out my sister?" And then I came back from the bathroom and then, like, he asked for my number and I was like I was so nervous. I was like, "Ah." I was, like, texting him in the ride home and I was, like, just genuinely, like, really excited to get to know him, which I hadn't been for somebody in like, a long time.
you
So, it
know
was cool.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's okay. That's really it.
Yeah, there it's interesting when 2 people get together, especially if they are a really well-matched pair, and with you and Frank, it seems like absolute not just seems, it is. I mean, you can't again, much like the bond you have with the FNT gang, with Frank, it's like you can't fake that. I mean, I would like to pay your Lord Francis, a compliment, if I may. Yeah, don't roll your eyes, he's got a nickname too. Anyway,
Lord Francis. Wow.
Lord Francis. Well, I mean, if you're the Lady Mayor, he has to be the Lord Francis.
Mhm.
Frank, you're stuck with that nickname. Shut up. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, most people who happen upon, or I shouldn't say happen upon, put it this way. If most people walked into a room and saw your husband there, they'd acknowledge his presence, but they would never realize his importance. Because by the time they've walked in the room, Frank's already been pushing buttons, pulling levers, turning wheels. He's making stuff happen. but he's not doing it for the praise and he ain't doing it for the glory. He's just doing it because it's the good and decent thing to do. I mean, in the 21st century, there's all this discussion about, well, what should a man be? Well, I don't know really, but I can give you an example of what you ought to try and aim for. That guy, he's cool. He's good. He's good egg.
Aw,
So that's the gayest compliment Frank Pellegrino will
very
ever
gay.
receive. There you go. So,
Very well, we have a lot of things in common, like desire to help people, like
mhm,
a desire to like grow a sense of community, like help friends out. Like we both love to like kind of create. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of we both share a kind of entrepreneurial spirit of like
mhm.
yeah, making your own way, making shit happen. But I think we complement each other well, and in the beginning, I was, like, nervous because we weren't what you would call astrologically compatible, but I think I've really grown because I don't let that bother me as much anymore.
Yeah, you two, like I say, are a very well matched pair. I mean,
Mhm.
and that's I mean, just my observation, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, in all the craziness that can be your life, I mean, it just seems like he's the one touchstone that grounds and centers you. It's like, okay, Frank's here. We're cool. We got
Uh-huh.
this. you know.
Yeah, he's also seen me through, like, many versions, like, many Pokemon evolutions, of myself and, like, many degrees of seriousness about comedy and my career and just, like, God, like, so many deaths, so many illnesses, like, we've been through a ton of shit, the pandemic, like, firings, oh my god, but then it's good, like, people shit on, like, "Oh," like like uh, I don't know, I think it's good to date somebody a long time before you get married, because then it's like you know what you're getting into and like, you have so much nailed down already, like, there's just less room for a curveball when you know someone, like, really, really well. That's why getting married didn't feel like that big a deal, it already felt like we were kind of married. Like, emotionally, we were already there. It was just like, "Okay, now we just fill out the paperwork."
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
the whole dating for a long time, you figure out, okay, do they roll the toilet paper over the top or does the toilet paper come out from under? Do
Over the
they
top.
squeeze do they
Mhm.
squeeze from the middle or do they squeeze from the end of the toothpaste tube? Because I mean, these are super critical issues that people have got to work out. I mean, if this stuff isn't straight in the beginning, yeah, it's just,
I mean, you're
it's
not a civilized person if you're not I will that is the one kind of OCD thing I'll do no matter where I'm at. If it's a restaurant, somebody else's house, or whatever, I will always flip the toilet paper the right way because like, the balance has to be restored. Like, I cannot just stand by and let the toilet paper come down underneath.
I feel you there on that one. It's like, I'll probably get cussed later and probably have been, but it's like, nope, nope. This toilet paper is going to be made right. We are going to bring balance
Yeah.
to the force. Absolutely.
It's like you
Absolutely.
have to make your bed. It's the making your bed of toilet paper maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So last thing on the list of loves in your life, there's the past and now there's the future. The bean. So next month this is happening obviously next month. How
Mhm.
you feeling? How's the bean doing? All that good stuff.
Feeling, like, fine other than not fitting into clothes, which I've gotten used to. I don't know, yeah, like, I don't know, I'm doing all these classes, right? I just feel like I have to cram for an exam, but at the same time, I also feel like it's like this idea, like, if anyone's ever trained for, like, a 10K or a Spartan race or something, it's like, "Okay, I know I'm about to undergo something, like, physically I've never done." Like, you can listen to videos and stuff and talk to people, but it's like it's just like, man, I don't fully know what to expect. I don't know what this level of pain is gonna be like, and, I would like to be able to, like, not need any drugs at all just for bragging rights, but, it's just yeah, that's what's frustrating. It's just you have no clue. You haven't been through it yet. So, it's just trying to,
Well,
like, prepare the best you can and just hope that, like, not everything gets destroyed.
well, dear, no, nothing's going to get destroyed. You're going to be just as awesome post birth as you are pre birth. This is going to be, I declare it to be so, a la peanut butter sandwiches. Boom. There
Okay,
you go.
good. Ooh, I
Okay.
feel comforted.
Well, if ever you're having one of those moments of like, oh my God, just like, Porch, tell me it's going to be okay. Chrissy, you got this. It's all good. Don't worry. You're going to be fine. Um, for the sake of keeping a promise, and I'll wrap this up fast. For the sake of keeping a promise to one of my listeners, they wanted your opinion about something. And I think this recently made the news. And as you are often willing to comment on things happening in the world, um, have you heard about the awful rumor that's going around about Brigitte Macron, the wife of the French president? She apparently is going through the whole same problems that Michelle Obama is. And I don't know if you've heard
Oh,
about this
she's a
yet.
man?
Well, now people are, there's speculation. And,
Okay.
in matters like this, we always come to the lady mayor for her opinion. I'm going to play this on silent because I don't know what kind of music they got to it. But
Mm.
if you look at the image and you just start to, what do you think? I mean,
This is
have we,
not enough. This is not enough. Just taking away somebody's hair is not enough. Like, I've seen a lot of chicks that look pretty manly in my day. Like, this is not enough.
okay.
I
Okay.
need I
So,
need to see. I have not seen this person move. I need a video. How do they walk? How do they talk? Like, the reason why people feel the way they do about Big Mike is because, like, yeah, we've seen a lot of photos, videos. Joan Rivers kind of broke the story in a sense, but and then there's
okay.
the whole, like, "Oh, we've never really seen her pregnant. Does that exist?" Some people say there are pictures of her pregnant, some people say there aren't, and it's like, she just looks manly, and she's big standing next to, Obama, so, I don't know, I don't really know a lot about this person. I am intrigued. I wanna
Okay.
find out more.
Okay,
Yeah,
and I have to apologize to one of my regulars, Gypsy, and I swear I know you sent it to me, Gypsy, and I was desperately trying to find it, and I for some reason I couldn't, so I came across this and thought I would use it. But if we find material on this matter, I will most certainly forward it to you because your opinion in these matters are
please
most
do.
certainly yes, I will be glad to. So we'll wrap it up and keep my word about timing. So from my, I mean, obviously you're at an amazing place in your life. I mean, are there when you're looking ahead and Lord knows you're not done yet, there's just stuff that's going to happen that's just going to be extraordinary for you, but in your mind as you're going forward,
Like a vaginal tear, you mean?
well, I wasn't going to be that nearly that graphic, but if you really must bring that up, I mean, who am I to stop you, of course.
The 2 holes
um
will become 1, I've heard. Yeah.
oh my God, that's just, like I said, I lost control of this one a long time ago. Anyway, I mean, no, there's gonna be mountains to climb. There's gonna be things that are gonna happen, and just amazingness that's like already happening for you. As you're looking ahead, what things do you see on the? In other words, when you're
Goals.
waking up, goals. Yeah, I mean, when you're looking ahead, you're thinking, okay, these are the things I still. These are the things the mountains that I want to climb. These are the things I
Mm.
still want to do. What is absolutely causing your motor to burn?
Um, I mean, I could certainly rattle off goals like, "Oh, it'd be nice to get on Rogan. It'd be nice to get on Kill Tony again. It'd be nice to, like, become a regular on Newsmax." But again, these are all things, like, you can't really attach so many of your goals into other
Sure.
people's decisions, other people's, like, validations of you because, like, that's out of your hands, so I think it's always better to have your goals focused around, like, what you're doing, like, your output, so planning to I'm kind of redoing my studio, so that will either be ready before or after the baby's born, so I can get to a place where I'm having, like, physical in-studio guests, um, get back to, like, working out a lot more, like, get feeling like, "All right, I'm back to myself," like, looking and feeling again, and, like, getting into, like, a kind of finding a new schedule where I feel like my output is really high, but I'm not, being like a deadbeat mom or something. So, I know those are kind of like lame goals, but
No,
I
no.
find that, like, if I'm working as hard as I can and being efficient, then good things are gonna happen and people will take note like, if you're putting out your best work, like, people will take notice and you'll get opportunities, so,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, in just the few years that I've been like following your career. It's just like, it's amazing to watch where it, and I mean this in all sincerity, it's amazing to watch where it has gone and the places that you've been. And it's just like, and I said a long time ago, and I said this to you, and you're like, oh no. I was like, nope, nope. I'm telling you, you're getting ready to take off, and you're hitting heights now. And I'm not saying this again to be sappy. I truly believe this. You're not done yet. There's just adventures out there you don't even realize are coming. And I just, like everybody, I can't wait to see it happen. And am so looking forward to it. I really am.
Mhm. Thank you, Porchy.
Well, now, oh, and by the way, did I hear some rumor that you have a show coming up this weekend?
I
Or
do. This Friday. This is my last Pregger show. Come see me, guys. 36-week pregnant this Friday, March 22nd at the Laughing Stock Comedy Club. That is in Granville, PA. It's near Hershey, PA. It's near Harrisburg, I think.
Mhm.
And the lovely Keanu Thompson will be featuring, and Gino Bisconti will be hosting. So this will be kind of like a little compound family show. Come on out if you're in the Pennsylvania area. And this is it. This is the last headlining show before I give birth.
See, folks, I told you, one of the hardest working women you'll ever meet, regardless of profession. The woman is like 36 weeks pregnant, and she's still doing stand up. It's like, jeez, oh, Pete.
Who knows? I might
Great.
live stream the birth if I need super chat. No, we'll see. I'm gonna get I am gonna get a hospital set ready because I do want to like crush it. I want to make sure everybody in the room laugh.
Well, Chrissie, thank you so much for being here to help me celebrate the 1 year anniversary. It has been an absolute joy having you
Ooh,
here.
happy
So,
anniversary.
well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And, you are welcome back here anytime you want. I mean, if you got something burning on the brain and you want to talk about it, just, you know where to find me. Just say, hey, what's on the calendar? I'm like, we're clearing it out. It's you
Aw.
give me the date. You got it. So, folks,
If I feel something burning, you'll be the first to know. Right after my doctor. Yes.
okay, I really appreciate knowing that.
Mhm.
I don't know. Anyway, where can folks find you on social media? What can they do to support you? I almost feel silly asking you that question, but you know what? I do it for every guest. So where can people help you out?
Oh yeah, follow me on Twitter at Chrissie Mayr, Mayr. My Instagram is Chrissie Mayr Pod, POD. For tickets, you can go to chrissiemayr.com. That's if you want to come to this show Friday in Pennsylvania. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am trying to hit 100K. I'm almost at 92. So that will be a big deal. And yes, I'm also having a baby pool. So if you want to gamble on the baby, you can send Venmo $10 to at Gino Bisconti with the date, weight, and time. And I think it's $5 to the baby, $5 to the winner. And there's already like a lot of people in this pool, so you could win some good money. Very
Abs- ab-
exciting.
Absolutely. And folks, thank you for being here for
Simcast. Yes, of course.
and
Simcast.
Podcast. Absolutely.
Sundays. Sundays at 9
some
Eastern.
of the some of the most beautiful women you will ever see in the whole of social media,
Oh,
hands down, mic drop. And if nothing else, aside from the fact they're all drop dead gorgeous, they're funny as hell. So you've got to tune in for this. It's that
gosh.
good, folks. You cannot miss this happening. So, so yeah, Chrissie, thank you again so much. Hang on for 1 second. We'll say some proper goodbyes as we exit out, folks. I'll be back with more videos this week. I'll be back Saturday morning, 10:30 Eastern for Front Porch Brunch. And guys, it's been an absolute honor having you here for the 1 year anniversary party. Thank you so very much, and everybody have a good night.